What's up, guys? Welcome to my YouTube channel. I made this channel to give us the opportunity to discuss really fun, interesting musical concepts about music theory, instrumental performance, arranging, music production, and songwriting. But before we get into any of that fun stuff, I think it's really important that everyone fully understands the foundation of music. That's a core part of my musical philosophy, is that you want to fully understand everything fundamental before you start building on that. So the most fundamental thing in music is counting to 4 with steady timing. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's called a measure. When you count to 4 and then loop it back around to 1 and keep it steady, that's called a measure. And that's the building blocks of Western music. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So before we continue, I'll just point out that while that's the building block of Western music, if you go to other parts of the world, they create music that's built on entirely different rhythmic structures. Like in parts of Europe, like in the Balkans, you have what's called the aksak rhythm, which is built on short and long pulses. It's not really about subdividing a measure equally. It's about stacking different length pulses, different melodies, and sort of modifying it by taking off short and long beats. And if you tried to just transcribe something like that using our system, you'd have to kind of bend the system to reflect the music. You'd have to use things like odd time signatures, lots of dotted notes. So that is used just as frequently as 4/4 in other parts of the world, even for their pop music, even for their dance music, for their folk music. All kinds of crazy rhythmic structures in all parts of the world. But we're in America. I learned music this way. So this is the Western system of music notation. So we got 4 beats in a measure. That's called quarter notes. That's the underlying pulse of the music, is the quarter note pulse. So 1, 2, 3, 4 beats per measure. All right. So what we want to do is subdivide the space in between the quarter notes, because if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, there's a lot of space in between those quarter notes. And if we mathematically subdivide that, we can create really syncopated, interesting music. So the first subdivision we do is just putting a beat in between the main downbeats of the pulse. So first I'm going to use this symbol here. And now, instead of counting quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're now counting eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and eighth notes look like this. I'm not going to draw all of them. I'm only going to draw half of them because drawing takes time. But that's what eighth notes look like. So then the next step is to subdivide in between the downbeat of the pulse and the adjacent eighth note. So what we'll do for that is this: 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and this allows you to be even more syncopated than if you were just using eighth notes. That gives us 16th notes, which look like this. Again, I won't draw all of them. I will just draw one set. So there's 4 16th notes in a quarter note, 2 16th notes in an eighth note. We're subdividing by a factor of 2 each time. And we can also go the opposite direction. So the quarter note divides the measure into 4 equally spaced beats. That's our main pulse. But we can also divide the measure in half. That gives us half notes. And we can also just have 1 note per measure. That's called a whole note. So this whole system is our rhythmic solfege. The most important thing about this is the counting of it. Counting quarter notes: 1, 2, 3, 4. Eighth notes: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 16th notes: 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. And that rhythmic structure will give you what you need to identify, transcribe, and communicate different rhythmic musical ideas to other people. So like, say you had a rhythm like this: ba, 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 ba. Well, the second hit is hitting right before the downbeat of beat 2. Ba, 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 ba. Eighth notes would feel like this: ba, 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 ba. So it must be a 16th note: ba, 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 ba. So that hit is falling on the of 1. So like 1 2 1 3 1 3 So that's just one example of why it's important to be able to count out music like this so you can understand where the beats fall. Okay, so that's rhythmic solfege. Now we'll go over all the notes that we use in the Western musical alphabet. All right, so now we're going to switch gears to talking about the tones, the pitches in music. And again, before we start, this system is designed to transcribe the Western musical language, which is going to be completely different from the music made in other parts of the world. For example, we subdivide the octave into 12 equally spaced half steps. But if you go to, say, the Middle East, they might subdivide the octave into far more semitones than that, which would make music that they create there using that system impossible to transcribe using our system. It's just incompatible because they use far more notes than we do. And their system is used just as much as ours, just in different parts of the world. But here's our system. So you want to start with the 7 natural notes: C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. And these seven natural notes are produced by applying the major scale pattern to root note C. So the major scale is a pattern of half steps and whole steps that we'll talk about in subsequent videos. But for now, the important thing to understand is that if we apply that major scale to root note C, it gives us these notes, and we're calling the rest of those notes D, E, F, G, A, and B. So the 7 natural notes, that's just what we get when we apply the major scale pattern to root note C. But this isn't all the notes. Like I said, we subdivide the octave into 12 half steps, and this is just 7. So in order to play other major scales other than C major, you'll need what's called sharps or flats. And you'll understand why in subsequent videos once we go over the pattern. But for now, we just need to understand the full chromatic scale. Chromatic just means all 12 notes. We're not staying bound to one particular scale or key center, just all 12 notes that we have to work with. So we got these 7 plus C sharp or D flat, D sharp, and E flat. Nothing between E and F, that's a half step apart. F sharp and G flat, G sharp and A flat, A sharp and B flat, and then B and C are also a half step apart. So that gives us our 12 notes. And again, the important thing to think about at this time is the natural notes, because that's what gives us the major scale. Again, is applying the major scale pattern to root note C gives us this set of tones, and we've named those tones D, E, F, G, A, and B. That way we can have a major scale that's all letter names, just to think of as like the home base major scale. You don't have to think about any extra sharps or flats. Applying the pattern to C gives us these tones, which are D, E, F, G, A, and B. That's the major scale and 7 natural notes. And then to get the remainder of the chromatic series, we fill in C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp, or the flats. That's called enharmonic, when you can have 2 notes, or two ways of naming the same note. One note, 2 ways of naming it. That's called enharmonic. So like C sharp and D flat, same note. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what topics you might like to see me discuss in future videos. I promise the videos will get a lot deeper and a lot more interesting as we progress. Like I said, I just think it's very important and a huge part of my own musical philosophy to make sure all the basics, all the fundamentals are completely understood before we start building on that. So I think the next video is going to be talking about the pattern of a major scale and all the subsequent modes that come from that pattern, which will be an interesting topic. So let me know if you guys want to see that video or what any other videos that video topics you might want to see me talk about. Anyway, have a good one. Peace.